Hello everybody, welcome to Painting for Pleasure. I'm your host Tony Visco, and we're going to do a little scene of some water, rocks, trees, those kinds of things. Actually, I sketched it out, but I was looking for my reference material. So this is my reference material, which I am going to work on. I'm showing it to you in color rather than black and white, because if I change this, all of this is going to look the same. So I want you to understand that there's going to be some red in here. I'm not going to do it exact, but what I'm going to do first of all is wet the back of the paper. I actually have sketched it out. I started to do this earlier. Now, let me just show you the difference. Here's the piece. I sketched it out. You notice that I sketched it out with trees leaning this way and that way, coming in this way. Some of this will be red. I took the rock and I made it smaller. Moved my guy over to the left a little bit rather than dead center. And put the rocks in here. So that's, and I put another individual back here. So that's the idea, just made it mine. Okay, so that's going to be my reference material. Here's the sketch. I'm going to wet it first. I'm painting on 300-pound ashes. I'm doing it. The sheet is 7 by 11, I think. I'll have to double check it, but it's a small sheet. The reason being that it's with the camera overhead like this, it's easier for me to work so that you can actually see it without getting my head in the way when I bend over, because the camera now is low enough so that I can paint. So I'm going to put this without putting my head in the camera view. So here we go. We're going to wet both sides. I want to thoroughly saturate the paper. We are going to paint this wet on wet. Just want to get all that water into the fibers of the paper. Once I get it into the fibers of the paper, I'll feel a little bit better, because I can keep it moist on the inside no matter what I do on the front. See, this back is nice and wet, really saturated. And when I turn it over, what's going to happen is I'm going to probably put it over here too, because I'm going to, on my upper right hand corner of the image, I'm going to put a live camera on there on my palette. So I'm going to put it over in this area here. Let's see if I can get this back into here. Probably right there. We should be able to work it right about here. Let's see. Let me get this thing straight. Well, that'll be about as straight as I'm going to get it, I think. So let's just test this. Let me just take the camera and see how this works with the palette. I want the palette in my painting area. I want you to be able to see it. Pretty much most of it anyway. So we'll bring it out here a little bit. I think that might work. Alright, so we'll bring it down here. I don't want it to be off my table, but that's close enough. That's good. Okay, so we'll get started. Let me just raise this up a bit. And put it a little bit straighter. Now, I'm not sure I think that's not straight in the camera, so I don't know. So it's going to be a little less straight. So if I move this over here a little bit more, I'll move this piece over a bit, and that should do it. So good. So now you can see the camera pretty much in view. The camera's good. See all the paints. Excellent. Good. All right, so it's thoroughly wet. And all of that water is going to saturate in the inside, in the pigments. I'm sorry, not in the pigment, but in the fibers of the paper. This is 300-pound ashes. And what will happen is, because the back is wet, what should happen is that it will constantly stay wet from the back side. So that being done, let me get my reference material out over here, put it up, and we'll start to paint this. And what we're going to do is we're going to just look at painting. So I'm going to put some sky in first, and then what I'm going to do is paint in some, probably paint in some of the trees with red leaves. They may not be exactly like I did it. I don't think that'll happen. But let's see where it goes, right? Because this is it's an interesting process, and we'll see. And I'm going to start off with my flat brush, and we're going to pick up some brighter colors. We want that bright orange red kind of stuff going on in some of these leaves over here. So we're going to just come in, and I'm going to just put a light coat of that nice red in there. We're going to fill it with darks as well. I'm not going to I can't follow exactly the image that we're working from, the reference material, because you're dealing with leaves, so you're dealing with stuff that's all over the place. We're going to have a little bit of reflection down in this area too, into the water. So we'll just do that and add a little bit denser, deeper. Deeper red. Now, what's going to happen here is that I have my brush, and I'm going to feather this in. All right. So we want to make it red. A lot of these areas are going to be red, orange. So the colors I'm working with are going to be my cobalt blue. I'm sorry, my red, which is my pyro red, and I've mixed that with a little bit of in here. I mixed that with a little bit of my Scarlet Lake. This happens to be a yellow, cadmium yellow as well. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just add a little bit of cadmium yellow in here, because this is a fall scene. Okay, so we're just adding a bit of that to help this out. Spots here and there. And we're going to probably make a lot of the inside stuff a little bit greener. Well, yeah, I know we are, as a matter of fact. So we're adding a little bit of that, and a couple of let me just do a couple of the yellow spots here and there between the leaves here and there. That'll help. A little bit of ground cover. We got maybe a little bit down in this area here. And a bit over here. So this is nice and wet. It's going to soften out. I'm using water, dipping it in, taking the water, dipping it in here, removing the water from the brush. And coming in and just making this nice and soft. Okay, maybe even lifting it out a bit. It's pretty red there. Okay, let's get a little bit more of that. In here, that sort of pinkish color right there. Now, my normal colors would be upper rose when I would be using like cadmium red upper rose, which I usually carry. Don't want this that red though. So I'm just feathering, softening, making this softer, and I'm going to actually pull out some of this. I want the autumn scene. I want you to feel that, but most of this is going to be dark green. Now what this is a lesson in how to do leaves, how to do trees, how to do rocks. And I was going to do it separately. I was going to just do a tree, a couple of trees and so forth, and I will probably go back and do that. But this one I thought might be interesting, and it's just a nice painting. I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue, and we're going to come in here with some heavy green. So I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue with my Naples yellow. I'm sorry, with my New Gamboge. Mix it up a little bit, and we're going to start to put in some darker areas. Now, what I'm actually doing is I'm taking my brush and I'm doing the tips. All right. Flat end, chiseled. I got a couple of trees in here. Okay, so now what ends up happening is no matter how much that dries out, too, the fact is that I should be able to go around all of this stuff, and it shouldn't bleed in too much. It'll do some, because it's going to do that. It's going to feather in. I didn't dry this out. Normally what I could have done is come in here, remove my brush, remove my water from my brush. Let's do it another way. Let's take a tissue. Okay, come in here, and I could have just remove some of the water here. As a matter of fact, I'll probably remove, let's just do this. Let's remove a little bit of that there, make that a little drier. But a lot of this is going to spread because there'll be leaves between here anyway, so I'm not too worried about the spreading so much. Let's just use a little bit narrower brush too. A little bit smaller brush, okay? So we're going to come in here and do the same thing. I'm going to come in and use a little bit more of my New Gamboge in certain areas, like over here. Now this is watery, and again I'm putting this in, and I'm actually putting in light values and dark values, and I'm just probably wifting this, or taking my brush, let's say, and just creating like leaf-like structure. I'm not painting leaves so much as that I'm just painting areas, broad areas. Okay, so that's all I'm really doing here. A little bit of water in the brush, soften some of this out, maybe lift some of this out, perhaps, maybe a little bit of alizarin. A little bit of my yellow ochre in some of these areas to get it a little bit more darker, a little bit more punchier. Okay, and I'm going to be jumping back and forth because this is all about balance. Okay, and it's fall, nature's fall, so we're just looking at this thing constantly, and I'm just trying to determine what's going to be dark and what's going to be light as I go through this. So let's take a little bit of cerulean blue and mix it in with my New Gamboge. Okay, and again, areas are going to be large. This is pretty dry on the surface right now, but it should be pretty wet inside. And I'm still getting soft marks, so that's a good thing. Okay, so we're just sweeping this in, lifting out here and there. And these are all trees. This is sky. So we're going to come up here, we're going to do a cobalt blue, a little bit of cobalt blue in the sky. Some of this is going to be nice and light. So it's a quilt, or a quilt patch of just varying colors that I'm putting in here, reds and blues and greens, to give it some dimension and some depth, some stronger values. And all down in this area here, for instance, is going to be, this is all pretty green. Okay, so we can see that what's happening. We got some interesting variations in terms of what we're doing here. Various colors, warms, cools. Those greens are cools, reds are warms, oranges are warms. Feathering this, mixing this. Notice how light this is, watery. Coming in here and overlaying some of that stuff on these areas here. I want to make that nice and dark. Well, the darker I make that, the better it's going to be. So if I come in here and I pick up a little of my dark color, which is basically my French ultramarine blue, and I add a little bit of burnt sienna to that, I should get a nice dark, which I can work with, right? Nice dark. And I'm going to add to that, I'm going to add some of my New Gamboge to it, and I'm going to turn this to a real dark green. New Gamboge in here is going to make it greener. Here's my strong blue, a little bit of burnt sienna. Alright, so we're just going to mix this up and we're going to have a real dark green. And we're going to start to put in those darks. Okay, marry this with some of the stuff that's up top. So I'm using my brush so that I can create some of these interesting darks that are going to go on in here. A little bit more burnt sienna in this mixture. We're going to make it a little bit browner, therefore a little bit darker too. A little bit of dry brush here and there too, actually. Let's come over here and make some A few darks in this area here. Okay, darken up some of this here. And there's going to be some darks in here as well, especially down here at the bottom of the ground and around these rocks. Okay, so we'll take a little bit more of that combination of blue, and we're going to make some of these a little bit darker. All right. So we've got some interesting dark patterns that are in here. And we're going to make some of this greener. So how about cerulean blue? A little bit more cerulean blue. You wash this, brush out, get some cerulean blue here. And let's go back and do the new gamboge. Nice light new gamboge in this area here. And we're going to lift. Take my brush, water out of the brush, come back. Oh, get some water in here, lift some of this out, make it lighter. Take my tissue. I'm always working with my tissue here. Okay, so there's basically my color structure. I need a little bit more dark up in this area in here. Let's get a little bit of, I think a little bit more darker up in here. Okay. And we're going to just put a few more darks in here too as well. That mixture doesn't want to work, so we'll just leave it alone. Let's make negative painting spaces around my rocks. Down in this area here, negative painting, right? Here you go. Painting between my rocks. Those white areas are going to be my rocks. Using a little bit of my what am I using? Okay, a little bit of my cerulean blue in this area. around my fisherman over here. Gonna do this, gonna remove that because I've got to forgot about this little guy over here. Okay. And we're gonna go basically do the same thing around this guy here, around the rocks there. So that's I got my basic background. This is nowhere near complete. Not what we're looking for right now. Just gonna let that flow in there. Okay, so let's get some real light. We're gonna I'm gonna make the top of this rock nice and light. A lot of water, gray water. Okay, so what we need to do is come over here and let me just clean this up a bit. Take some of this out of here so I can have a space where I can work. And we need to make this a little bit on the gray side, so I'm going to take a little bit of my cobalt blue here, just a little bit of cobalt blue. All right. Just light cobalt blue, and leave some of this white. Alright, here's my rock. I'm going to come down here with my rock there and make it a little bit darker. By mixing my burnt sienna in here with it. It's going to be my dark side. My rocks are going to be light over there, but over here they're going to be dark. So we're taking this little combination of burnt sienna and my cobalt blue, mixing it up. I want this on the gray side, and some of it's got to be a little bit darker. Okay, so we're going to make this darker in here. We're going to make all of this darker in here. And so these are going to be areas of this rock around the water that are going to be dark, and then I'm going to come over here with a little bit lighter gray. Rock area here. Okay, and then we're going to just do the same thing, but I'm going to add over here. I'm using my lavender mixture in here with these rocks here. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do a rock edge, edge, edge. Okay, I'm going to soften this up a bit. Nice, and some of these are going to be nice and light, these rocks over here. Maybe a little bit of warm reflection in some of those. Back in that area there. Let's get some nice warm yellow with let's take my new gamboge Bring some in here. We're going to fix this, a lot of this stuff, because we don't want this white necessarily, a lot of this. But we'll get some. Okay. So what do we want to do? We got this tree trunk that's going to be sticking up here. So just taking some water, removing that. We will undoubtedly, because that's sky, I'm going to end up making this trunk. There's going to be probably darker up there and lighter down here. Okay, so we've got some dark, some lights in there. That's pretty good. Dry some of this off there. Dry some of that off there. Dry some of that off there. So what I'm doing is I put the color in, right, or the value. Let's say the value. And then to make this rock a little bit more interesting, we're removing some of the value. Probably going to do some of that right in here too. And we have some really interesting darks and lights that are going on here. And I want that red stuff. I want that, definitely that red. I'm going to actually, with this white areas, probably put a little bit more of that red in there. So let's go take care of my. Let's take care of my. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I just dropped my knife. So let's take a little bit of my yellow ochre here. And we're going to make the waders in this, my gentleman, right here. Okay, and then we have a I don't want him in green. I'm going to just put him in change him up a bit. Let's see, let's put him in a blue jacket or a blue. Wader vest is what it is. And his arms out this way, isn't it? Yep. Okay. And his arm is up that way. And his hat's right here. And put his face in. I'm going to make a space dark. So we can see him. See him against the dark in the back area, right? And we'll make it. Okay. And we've got a little darker under here. Alright, we'll put him in there. I'm going to make him a little bit darker probably. Okay, at this point we're going to just probably, let's put some water in here. Then we'll put the trees in. Let's wet this again. Wet this up good. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some soft strokes in here. It's wet. We'll use a little bit of cobalt blue. I'm going to mix a little bit of just clean cobalt blue. This is lavender down here, and I think that'll work. But what I want to do is I want to cool this off a little bit more, and add a little bit of my cobalt blue, which is right here, but very light, very watery. Okay, very watery, because it's going to be the glare on the water is right in here. All right, so we'll put that in first. Okay, and then we're going to darken it up. And that some of these areas over here, we're going to come in here and give it a little bit more darker colors just by taking my cobalt blue and mixing it up with my burnt sienna a bit. A little bit of cobalt blue and burnt sienna. I got a little bit darker on the bank across the way there. And the reflection of this rock here. And we have a reflection of that rock right there, which we have to put in yet. And we're going to do the same thing across here, because we have darker colors that are going to go in here. Darker values, I should say. I keep saying color, but I don't mean that. I mean value. All right, we're going to do this really. Now this is a nice rock that's right in here. Right, so it's a chiseled edge rock. So let's get it even darker. With more cobalt blue. More burnt sienna. Okay. Nice dark areas here. chiseled area here, dark area, and probably right into here too. Nice and dark. I'm going to make some of these darker. What we're starting to do is we're just using the little cobalt blue and burnt sienna combination over here now to put my darks. Okay, and we're going to make some of this back here a little bit darker. I want to make sure that I get this form correct. So we need to darken up behind this form. That form is a rock. Okay, so we have that. Okay, that's fine. We have a few rocks back here too that need to be defined. One there. And these rocks here are going to have to be defined too. A little bit more value in these things. Okay. Now these rocks are on the shore. We got all right on the other side of the bank. This guy is fishing. All right. Nice dark there. We'll probably have to put a little bit more dark in there too. Okay. Let me dry this out. Right here, we have a rock here. So I'm going to take my tissue and come in here and dry that off right there, and dry this off right here. Okay, so that way I can paint that without it hopefully not getting in there. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in here with my smaller brush again, and we're going to paint, well, I think that'll take this brush here. So rather than me do that, let me just make a sort of a dark mark right here and here. Rock there. And a little bit more value here. And a rock right in here. Okay, and the top of my rock, I'm going to come up here a little bit more. Okay, top of my rock, got one over there too. So I'll leave that white as the top of the rock. Scrape this up a little bit more. We're going to change up the colors. What I'm doing is I'm just coming over here and just trying to make this a little bit more interesting. Okay. And a little bit of lighter area in here. See if we can dry that off there. And a lighter area in here. I'm going to dry that off. Let's get this, maybe a nice one here too. Light areas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the tops of those rocks lighter, and I'm going to make it darker behind them. In other words, I'm going to come over here and get my deeper greens. Okay, and make those more interesting. Okay, a little bit deeper greens in there. Maybe even darker. Maybe some of these should be even darker. Okay. Okay, we've got a few rocks in the back there. That's not bad. All right. Now, I'm going to make this guy, I want to put a lighter, I'm going to want to put a lighter jacket on him. So I'm going to come in here and wet this area. I have this pretty peacock, let me see if I can do this, pretty peacock-like blue in here. So I want him to have a little bit more of an there you go. I want that to be okay. All right. Okay. I may have to lighten up that face a bit. Maybe redden up. Maybe we'll just put a red cap on him. All right, we'll leave him for now because I'm going to let him dry out a bit. So let's go back and get some real darks in here. And I'm going to see if I can make some interesting marks. Some dark marks that are interesting. Scatter these a bit. So all I'm doing is I'm just pressing some of those in there to get a bit of a scattering of some darks. I do want to come over here and take a look at these trees because these trees are lighter. And I wanted them lighter. And I'm going to make a little bit of dry brush. So my dry brush is going to be more pigment than water. So I'm going to come down here, let's see, to give me a dry brush effect in here. And maybe up here. and start to put in a little bit more of my branches that are going to come out. I want it a little bit darker up here. And if I can get a little bit more pigment, all right. I think that tree is a little bit bigger, heavier. And we got this guy coming up here, but we probably should have him coming up too, because we got to make sure that he's recognizable as a top of a tree. Okay. Now what I'm doing is just, I'm creating some tree trunks in here that should be a little bit more interesting for this whole painting. Now, I don't know if I can do this. Let's see if I can scrape some of this stuff in here. I do want to get some thinner scrapings in some of these areas, especially there. Now I've got my blade, so my blade is doing my really thin, very thin line. It scrapes here and there. And I do need to come over here and make some of these trees a little bit more interesting. So we're going to get some real, let's just get some nice dark. We are going to make this darker up here. We're going to make this one a little bit darker too. We get a little branches that are coming off here. Right, these are trees that are in here. Okay. Again, darker. Dark there. Here. These are rocks, guys. These are... yeah, sort of interesting areas. We got this nice dark down here. Make some of this even darker right here. And then we'll scrape some of that off there. Because of the papers being wet in the inside, this stuff tends to dry out a little bit more. When you put the docks in other words, what's happening is it's lightening up because the water that's inside there is just being absorbed. So the paints tend to dry out. But we'll just put some dry brush in here. And maybe make a little bit of a landmass. Between that. I'm going to make this a bit darker here because it is. And so this is also. That nice rock right there. So we got that pretty pink, not pink. I just do have to try and lighten his face up a bit. Right there, and we're going to lighten up some of his jacket. We'll make a sort of a backpack on this back. Let's see if we can lighten some of this up here. All right. Just wanted to get a little bit more realistic looking. Put that red hat on him, that's fine. Okay. Let's get a little bit more of this scuffiness in here. Now I'm taking a little bit of my Naples yellow, coming in here with some patches. And some of this is dark, some of it's a light. Do we want it any darker? That's my concern right now. Or do we want to leave that the way it is? I don't know, it looks pretty good. Let's see. What do we do here? Do we do it? Do we dare do it? What I'm going to do is add a little bit more of this little splashes of red, red, orange. Okay, let's see if I can get a little bit more of this in here, because we do have a reflection. We do have this reflection. And yes, it's maybe a soft reflection, but it's a reflection nonetheless. Reflection of this red. Now it's also going to be darker, so we're going to get a little bit darker burnt right here, so we're going to get a little bit more cobalt blue in here. A little bit more cobalt blue. Let's go back and that I think is enough. Let's just take a little bit of that. Okay. Oh, you know what? My goodness, I totally forgot about my... Can I put him in? Where is he? Oh, good Lord, I lost my I lost my little guy up there. Well, maybe we'll put... Tell you what, we'll put a little guy back here. Right there. Okay, I know I keep changing him up, but it's not quite right yet. The weight is on. And he's sitting in the water here somewhere, right? So make sure he's anchored to the water. And we have a fishing rod. A couple of people watching him on the back shore. Okay, I think we've got what we need. Just want to scrape this in right here. All right, so let me take a look at this. Let me just take the camera off that. And see what we got. Well, all right, we got a decent painting. Let's see if we can, if we zoomed in on this, move it over here. Got some of those red splashes. I'm not sure that that's really good, but nonetheless, it's my painting, and I think that's going to be it. I'll let it set for a while and we'll see what happens. Okay, what I'm going to do here is just add a little bit brighter red in some of these areas, and I think that's going to be that's going to be it. Let's see if I can pull this over here. Yeah, something like this. No, I'm not going to put... Well, maybe I can. No, I'm not going to put the palette in on this one. I'm just going to get some stronger color, stronger reds, and just glaze some of them in to this area. And let's see how that works. Now that's pretty bright, but I think what'll happen is it will soften. I'm going to leave that alone. We're going to let it dry. Let's just make sure we're talking about this. Let me just reset that right there. Okay, so that's going to be nice and strong colors. I wanted stronger colors than I had in there, So I just put those in, and that's just a real quick overlay of red. Okay, what I'm doing here is just adding a couple of little highlights without getting the palette. I'm just taking some dark pigment, and I'm just going in here and doing some dry brush to make sure that this is good, nice and strong here. We got a little bit of I gotta pull this out. Excuse me, my arm is in the way. We'll pull it over there. Okay. Yeah, so we're just doing some little highlights. So that red worked out pretty good. We're just going to make a couple little tiny interesting reds, a little bit of stronger reds here and there. His hat. And some darks. A few more of these darks, really stronger darks in those areas. The darks are going to be green, by the way. They're darks, there's no question. This is just basically what I'm doing is I'm putting color down or value down directly out of the tube. I don't really need to do this. This is just, I'm playing around now with testing. That's it. This is my painting. Thank you for being with me. I'm Tony Visco. This is Painting for Pleasure. I'm just I keep doing this. I'm sorry, but just adding a few more highlights in this piece, and I'm using all I'm doing is I'm coming in here with my Naples yellow and adding onto that red in these areas. This is I pulled out my guy back there, by the way. It's just adding some Naples yellow in here to enhance this a bit. this is what really, I should have done this earlier. Gives it a much nicer feel to it. And I'm going to end up coming in here and getting a little bit of Naples yellow mixed in with my lavender. There's so much going on in this painting, you know, that I wanted to just capture the vibrance of all those reds that are there, and sort of play down a lot of the other stuff. Just a interesting piece. Okay, I'm going to let it go. I know I say this all the time. Time to let this thing be on its own, don't you think? I think so. I think so. Just come over here and just add a little bit of touch of a little bit of blue there. Okay. So, again, once again, I'm your host, Tony Visco, and I will see you the next time. Thank you.